Minister, the cost of living crisis is pushing households to the brink. Price hike after price hike has workers and families to the pin of their collar, and with no sign of these spiralling costs coming down. It is plain to see that people cannot afford Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in government any longer. People are at their wits' end. Rents are soaring, mortgage interest rates are rocketing, grocery prices and energy bills keep shooting upwards. People can't stretch anymore. There is nothing else left to cut back on. Last month, research revealed Irish electricity prices are the highest in Europe. Gas prices here are the highest in Europe as well. But this will come as no surprise to the consumers who are opening their bills to see those eye-watering amounts being demanded. Energy credits have long been spent, and government is merely sitting on its hands. Minister, I want to tell you about one lady's recent experience of this crisis. An elderly lady in Laois, living alone after her husband sadly passed away last year. She received an electricity bill for €760, a colossal amount of money that she simply cannot afford. She applied for an additional needs payment to help cover the cost. Shockingly, she was refused support. Why? Because she has a small amount put away from her pension over the last year, saved for a headstone for her late husband's grave. Because of that refusal for help, she was forced to spend the money on the electricity bill instead of the headstone. Minister, her husband's anniversary is approaching and she is distraught that she will not have that headstone for his grave on time. Yet when her family called around to visit her last night, they found her sitting in the dark, terrified of switching on the lights, worried sick about what the next bill might be and when these nightmare costs are going to end. Minister, this is appalling. And what does it say about us as a society that we are living in under Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, that this is the lived reality for a lady of that age? And I'm going to tell you about another older person let down by your government. A 90-year-old woman in Dublin whose gas bills have gone from €200 to €600. And she simply doesn't have the money for this. And unsurprisingly, she's fallen into arrears. But after questioning the bills, she was threatened with disconnection. She is absolutely beside herself, Minister, 90 years of age. Now, a few weeks ago, Sinn Féin brought forward a plan to cut energy costs and to cap them. This would have made a real difference to hard-pressed households. But your government blocked the plan, and you failed to offer up any solutions of your own. You act like spectators to the catastrophe unfolding for workers and family, the length and breadth of this state. Instead of acting, you abandon people who need support now. From energy costs to food prices, spiralling rent, mortgage interest relief, it's clear we cannot afford to have you in government any longer. Minister, what will it actually take for your government to get their act together? When will you give people the support they need to weather this cost of living crisis? And what action will you take to cut energy costs and give households like those two ladies and countless others the much needed break they need from ever-increasing costs?
Thank
you very much, Deputy Clerk, for raising this important issue. And you're absolutely correct on one matter, that clearly the cost of living crisis is real. It's real for households, it's real for families, it's real in urban Ireland and rural Ireland, and that's why it requires action. Not just action at budget time, but action from this government on a very regular basis. And you're seeing that action in a whole range of measures. You saw it in advance of Christmas, more than €4 billion worth of measures to help people with the cost of the winter, right across a whole range of areas. Lump sum payments, weekly payment increases, you saw the tax reductions for working families kicking in January, but you also see it now. You see it right now with families across the country with children going to benefit from an increase in child benefit, an extra €100 per child next month. So this is a government by any objective measure that is acting and that is using the hard-earned money of the people of this country that has been paid in taxes to give a bit back to people and to try to make things a little bit easier. I must say, I think it's really disappointing that you try to suggest government's kind of sitting on its hands. And I suppose you get used to that from the opposition, but it's simply not true. And by any, again, objective measure, if you look at what we have done in relation to energy, whether it's the fact that every single household has benefited from €200, not once, not twice, but 3 times in terms of energy credits. If you look at the fact that we provided everybody with fuel allowance with a top-up payment of a €400 lump sum payment, something you didn't even fathom in your alternative budget, and we did that before Christmas, accepting that people were coming in to the winter. And whether you look at the fact that we extended the eligibility for the fuel allowance, and I note those 2 cases that you share with us today in the Dáil, and we think of those people, and I accept the struggles they're facing, but I think of them as you've described them both as older people. The measures taken by Minister Heather Humphreys means 80,000 more older people will benefit from fuel allowance under plans that this government has enacted. So we're taking action. We're taking action every day. And even if you want to talk about energy beyond families, look at the business scheme that we've put in place and the decision to extend that so people now have up until the end of May, and we'll keep that under review to make sure more businesses can qualify, so we help small and medium businesses the length and breadth of this country. So we are taking real action, and that's just in the energy space. There's so many other areas as well. But you know, I don't doubt your bona fides at all. I don't doubt your sincerity. I know you to be a hard-working public representative, but I can only judge you on your policy. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised that you're mentioning energy, because you'd gone terribly quiet on it for a while. Because usually the opposition can stand up and say what they want, and we never get to see how it plays out in the real world. But actually, unfortunately for you, Liz Truss became the British Prime Minister, albeit for a very brief period of time. And during that time, I don't know whether she stole Mary Lou's homework or Mary Lou stole her homework, but you ended up with a scenario where they went ahead and did what you advised. And they brought in price caps. They brought in price caps. And in bringing in the price caps, she managed to tank the pound. So, no, we're not going to follow the example. We're not going to follow the example of Liz Truss. We're not going to introduce price caps. And you know what? You come in here on a very regular basis and you say, have you seen the latest ESRI report? You regularly ask government ministers, have you seen what the ESRI said? We could probably paper the walls of this chamber with ESRI reports you'd like us to implement. So my question to you today is, have you seen what the energy economist in the ESRI, Muireann Lynch, said only 2 weeks ago about the Sinn Féin proposal? Because she, not the government, not Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil or the Greens or whoever you want to pick on today, but actually the ESRI, they said that the price caps would, and I quote, so it means the energy providers can essentially jack their prices up as high as they want because they've absolutely no incentive to try to contain those costs, and they know it's all going to be covered by the government. The only certainty your plan would provide is the certainty that the woman in Laois and the man in Dublin and everybody else watching this programme would have to put their hand in their pocket and hand their money over to the energy company.
Thank you, Minister.
That's why, Ceann Comhairle, we will not bring in a plan that is bad for the economy, bad for households, bad for climate, and the only people that will benefit is the energy companies. Instead, what we will do, and I will shout it down, instead what we will do is legislate for a windfall tax to hit companies where it hurts, in the pocket on their profits.
Now, wait now. On both sides of the House, do have a little bit of order, please, and a bit of respect. Deputy Clerk, please.
Minister, no engagement in any amount of misinformation is going to put a headstone in that woman's grave, or husband's grave. That's a simple fact. Nor is it going to put money in the bank account of people like the other lady in Dublin with her colossal gas bill. That's there. You mentioned child benefit, that's there. It will be welcomed by all parents because they already have the bills that it needs to go towards paying. It's not for future bills that comes down the road. Lord knows it's not even to buy their child a pair of shoes over the summer. It's to pay the bills that are already sitting there. So no future plan. So that's where we hear government come up with this notion of, sure, listen, can't you all just hang off there until the budget in October and we'll see what it is that we can do. It simply isn't good enough. And the message that's coming from government at this point is very clear to everybody across the state who is struggling in the here and now. You have no interest in tackling the struggles that they are facing. You have no interest in assisting them at their time of need. You mentioned the energy credits. They were gone, Minister, before the money ever landed in anybody's bank account or came directly off the end of the bill. So the question again stands, what are you going to do to cut the energy costs and give households who are struggling here and now a break from them costs?